Close your eyes and let the night unfold. In the quiet spaces between your breaths, there are stories, old as the stars, about faith, fear, and redemption. Tonight we drift through the forgotten corners of ancient cults and sacred rituals, where punishment was not always cruelty, but a doorway to understanding, a path to spiritual awakening. Let the whispers of history soothe you. From candlelit temples to moonlit deserts, from silent monasteries to hidden groves, we'll wander gently through 70 stories of devotion and consequence, each one a mirror to the human soul, searching for peace through pain and light through darkness. Breathe slowly. The spirits of the past are not here to frighten you. They are here to remind you that every soul, even in punishment, seeks harmony once again. If this journey brings you calm, let me know where your spirit is listening from. And if these whispers help you rest, you're always welcome to stay. Subscribe and drift with us again. The night opens like a slow breath. The air is cool, scented with dust and memory. You stand before an ancient temple, its stones pale beneath the silver moon, its arches veiled by creeping vines that sway like slow whispers in the dark. The wind sighs softly through broken pillars, carrying a scent of old incense, of time itself fading gently into silence. This is where forgotten gods once listened, where prayers rose like mist, where souls came not to be judged, but to be cleansed. You step closer. The earth beneath your feet is warm, as though it still remembers the footsteps of the faithful. The air trembles with the faint sound of chanting, a rhythm older than any word you know. It hums low, like a lullaby carried by stone. Here, punishment was not born from cruelty. It was the path toward release, each wound a door, each tear a river washing away what could not be seen. In the shadows of the veiled temple, a basin carved of marble catches the moonlight. Its water is still and glassy. Once, devotees stood before it, whispering confessions into the surface, letting their breath ripple across its calm. They believed the gods could see through reflection, that each trembling circle upon the water revealed a truth hidden in the heart. To purify the spirit, they said, one must first see its impurities dance. You lean closer. The reflection in the water is not only your face, but countless others layered beneath. The faces of those who once stood here, who once believed that pain could be made holy. You see a woman, her hands pressed together, eyes closed as ash was scattered upon her hair. You see a man kneeling in silence, his breath fogging the cool air as he whispered the same word again and again, until meaning dissolved into peace. Above them, unseen gods listened, not with eyes, but through stillness. Their temples were not built for sound, but for echo. A soft breeze moves through the open courtyard. Candles flicker to life as though remembering their duty. The flame bends low, bowing to the wind. These were not the temples of grand offerings or golden idols. They were places of surrender, of humility, of slow unburdening. The followers came not to beg for miracles, but to shed their weight. Each punishment was a poem written upon the flesh, an offering not of blood, but of willingness. They believed that to suffer gently with open heart and quiet mind was to polish the soul until it reflected the divine. There is no pain here now, only echoes, only softness. Even the stones seem to hum with forgiveness. You walk deeper inside. The arches grow taller, the air cooler. 1,000 years of silence has gathered like fine dust on the floor. Your steps sound like whispers, each one fading into the endless hush of the temple's breath. On the walls, carvings tell the stories of their rites. Men and women kneeling before veiled statues, tears falling like stars into bowls of oil. Hands raised toward light. You pause before one carving. 2 figures bound by ribbons of silk, their heads bowed. The inscription beside them, nearly erased by time, translates softly in your mind. Through stillness, the body learns release. Through release, the soul learns light. Their punishments were quiet things. Days of fasting, hours of kneeling beneath the rising sun, the silence of watching one's own breath until it vanished into the sky. These were not torments, but meditations disguised as endurance. Each act of restraint peeled away the noise of the self, until only calm remained. The deeper you walk, the more the world outside begins to fade. There are no more stars, no wind, no sound, but the steady rhythm of your own heartbeat. The temple holds you, as if you have stepped inside the breath of something vast and ancient. You feel a warmth begin to bloom within your chest, soft and slow. It spreads like candlelight through the corridors of your being. In one corner, a small figure carved of stone watches you. Its face is worn smooth, its eyes blank but kind. This was a god once prayed to for mercy, the god of balance whose punishment was never destruction but transformation. The devotees believed that the soul, like clay, must be reshaped by pressure to reveal its truest form. You close your eyes, and the figure seems to breathe. You can almost hear its voice, not in sound, but in understanding. All pain is a path. All paths lead home. Far ahead, a faint golden light spills across the floor. You follow it until you find a circular chamber open to the sky. The ceiling has long since fallen away, revealing the heavens like a wound healed by stars. In the center stands an altar of white stone. Around it, countless candles still stand unlit, their wax hardened by centuries. You sense what once happened here, a ritual of release, a moment when all burdens were laid down and all guilt washed clean. The followers would stand in silence until the dawn touched the altar. Each would whisper the name of the pain they carried. The temple's priests, men cloaked in veils of gray, would not speak but simply place a hand over the heart of the penitent. That single touch was the punishment and the blessing alike. It was said that the warmth of their palm drew out the shadows within, leaving behind only stillness. You imagine it now, the quiet courtyard filled with light, the air thick with incense and hope, the soft chanting rising with the sun, the moment when one by one they all found peace. The moon climbs higher, bathing everything in pale silver. The candles around the altar begin to flicker, though no hand has touched them. It feels as though the temple itself is remembering. And for a moment, you remember too, not from this life, but from somewhere beyond time. Perhaps you once stood here. Perhaps you once sought the same release. You take a slow breath. The air tastes of smoke and salt, and the faint sweetness of sandalwood. The world narrows to the sound of your breathing and the rhythmic sigh of the night. A soft voice seems to move through the air, a whisper so delicate it could be your own thoughts. Do not fear what you must let go. Even pain, when faced with love, becomes prayer. The words settle in you like warm rain. You look upward. The stars are drifting across the open roof, each one glowing faintly through the thin mist of clouds. They seem to move slower here, as if time itself bows in reverence to this place. The ancient ones believed that stars were fragments of divine forgiveness, each one carrying a soul that had found peace. When a follower completed their ritual of punishment, they would light a single flame and look skyward, whispering their final wish. To be remembered not for their suffering, but for their peace. The flame would flicker, the night would breathe, and somewhere in the distance, another star would awaken. Even now, you can see them shimmer above, the souls of those who once knelt here, shining quietly, patient and eternal. A hush moves through the temple. It is the sound of memory softening, of ancient wounds closing like petals at dusk. You sit upon the stone floor and let the stillness wrap around you. The night presses close, not in weight, but in comfort. The air hums with unseen life. The spirits of those who once prayed here now resting, their stories woven into the silence. The veil between worlds is thin here, but it does not frighten you. It feels gentle, like being cradled by something vast and kind. You can almost hear the old chants again, carried faintly by the wind, a song of devotion, of forgiveness, of soft surrender. The syllables mean nothing, yet their rhythm speaks directly to the heart. You breathe in their peace. You exhale your own burdens. The air carries them away like smoke dissolving into the night sky. The temple's arches begin to blur. The candlelight flickers like dreams. You are not sure if your eyes are open or closed. Time drifts. The gods who once dwelled here are gone. Or perhaps they never left. Perhaps they only changed form, now living in every breath, every heartbeat, every quiet act of kindness that still lingers in the world. Their punishments have turned to lessons, their lessons to whispers of compassion. They are not forgotten, only transformed. And you too are part of that transformation. You carry their memory in the stillness of your mind, in the gentleness of your rest. The temple fades, not into nothing, but into peace. Stone becomes shadow, shadow becomes silence, silence becomes sleep. The last candle trembles, its flame shrinking to a single glowing thread. It flickers once more, then goes out, leaving behind the faint scent of smoke and myrrh. Above, the stars watch in silence. They seem closer now, almost near enough to touch. Each one holds a fragment of every soul that ever sought forgiveness beneath these arches. You feel their light fall softly across your skin, like warm rain. It soothes every thought, every memory. There is no need to remember, no need to strive. Only stillness, only rest, only the soft hum of eternity around you. And so, beneath the veiled temples of forgotten gods, you drift. The night folds you in its gentle arms. The earth hums beneath your body, steady and slow. The voices of the past have quieted, their songs now a tender lullaby echoing across time. The gods sleep, the candles sleep, the stones sleep. You too may rest now. You are forgiven. You are light. You are home. Let the stars keep watch as you drift deeper into calm. Let every breath carry you closer to peace. And now, let go. The temple fades to dream. The dream fades to night. And the night fades to stillness. Sleep, traveler. The forgotten gods are with you still. Not to punish, but to cradle your spirit, softly, endlessly, in their quiet, eternal love. The wind moves like a whisper across an endless sea of sand. The sky above is pale gold, wide and without edge. Somewhere the horizon blurs into light so bright it feels like memory itself. Soft, silent, eternal. In this ancient desert, time does not move. It breathes, slowly, gently, like the heartbeat of something vast and half forgotten. You stand at the edge of the dunes. Beneath your feet, the sand feels warm, alive, almost kind. The air hums faintly with a sound too quiet to name. A vibration, like the breath of old gods who still sleep beneath the earth. Here, long ago, the followers of the sun began their journey of penance. Barefoot, silent, endless. Their path stretched through dunes and shadows, guided only by the rising flame of dawn. They believed that each step carried the weight of their sins away, that the sand itself listened, absorbing their sorrow grain by grain until all was forgiven. The desert was their temple, the wind, their only priest, and the sun, their god, watchful, fierce, yet merciful. Each morning before the first light touched the horizon, they would kneel upon the cool ground. They would whisper their prayers into the dust, asking for courage to walk again. And when the sun appeared, a red ember rising from the deep, they would begin. Their punishment was the journey itself. Miles of silence, of heat, of surrender. But to them, it was also a hymn. Each footprint was a verse, each breath an offering. They did not walk to suffer. They walked to remember that even pain could become a doorway to peace if walked through with patience and faith. The desert stretches before you now, calm and golden. The wind carries the faint scent of myrrh and dry earth. In the distance, shapes move, figures draped in linen, their shadows long and soft upon the sand. You follow them with your eyes. They move slowly, rhythmically, like waves upon the sea. Each one carries a small clay vessel of water, held carefully as though it contains something sacred. It is said that in the ancient rites, each pilgrim carried a single bowl of water across the desert. The journey was long enough that most would spill or lose it before reaching the temple on the far side. But those who arrived with even a few drops remaining were considered purified, their hearts lightened by endurance, because the desert, they believed, did not want their success. It wanted their sincerity. As the sun climbs higher, the air thickens. Shimmering lines ripple across the dunes. The pilgrims walk still, each one quiet, their faces hidden beneath veils of cloth to shield from the light. You can almost hear their breath, slow, even, accepting. The heat presses down like a soft hand upon the crown of the head. Each step burns, but the burn becomes familiar, almost comforting. In their silence, they begin to see more clearly. The mind, stripped of noise, begins to hum like the wind itself. Old thoughts fade. Regrets dissolve. Only the rhythm of walking remains, the sound of soles brushing sand, the low hum of wind weaving through empty sky. Somewhere above, a hawk circles, its wings spread wide and unmoving. It watches without judgment, its eyes catching the glint of light that dances off the pilgrims' vessels. In their faith, the hawk was a messenger of the sun, a silent witness to the devotion below. The hours stretch. Light shifts from gold to white, then slowly deepens to amber. You feel it now, the way the desert tests the soul, not through cruelty, but through stillness. There are no distractions here, no shade, no sound of rushing water, only the endless conversation between sand and sky. And in that emptiness, a strange peace begins to grow. The pilgrims knew this peace. They believed the sun burned away not only the skin's comfort, but the heart's illusions. One story tells of a devotee named Meren. He walked alone for 7 days, his water gone by the third. On the 7th morning he fell to his knees upon a high dune, his body weak, his lips cracked, and as he looked toward the blinding sun, he whispered, "If I am to die here, let it be as one forgiven." It is said that when the priests later found his body, his clay bowl was unbroken, still holding a single drop of water that shone like molten gold. They buried him where he fell and marked the spot with a circle of stones. Centuries later, that place became a shrine, known as the Well of One Drop. To this day, when the wind blows across that desert, travelers say they hear the faint sound of water trickling beneath the sand. As twilight arrives, the heat softens. The dunes glow like sleeping embers. The pilgrims rest at last, their robes glowing faintly in the fading light. Some kneel, pressing their foreheads to the ground. Others gaze toward the horizon, where the sun bows to the edge of the world. This, too, was part of the ritual. At sunset, each pilgrim spoke to the fading sun, offering thanks for its light. They would whisper, "You burn to remind us that all things fade. You fade to remind us that all things return." The desert listened, as it always did, in silence. You can almost hear their voices blending with the wind, soft and rhythmic, like waves breaking on a distant shore. Their language is lost now, but their devotion remains, woven into the breath of the land itself. Night descends slowly like silk falling through the air. The dunes cool beneath the stars. Shadows stretch long and blue. The pilgrims lie in shallow hollows of sand, their eyes half closed, faces calm. Above them, the Milky Way shimmers. Thousands of lights spread across a velvet sky. They believed the stars were souls of the forgiven, lifted by the breath of the desert into eternity. Each sparkle a reminder that no punishment lasts forever, and no suffering is wasted. Somewhere among them, a young devotee whispers a prayer to the night. "May my heart burn clean as the day, and rest cool as the stars." The sand seems to breathe in answer. You can almost feel it too, the deep humming peace of that place, the kind that comes not from comfort, but from surrender. There is a story the elders told beside the dying fire. They said that when the gods first shaped the world, they created the desert not as a punishment, but as a mirror. For only in emptiness could the soul truly see itself. The sun, they said, is the divine gaze, bright, unyielding, compassionate. To walk beneath it, barefoot and bare-hearted, was to let oneself be seen completely. No lies could live in that light. No shadow could hide. And so the pilgrims walked not to escape judgment, but to meet it gently, to stand beneath the great fire and whisper, "I am ready to be known," in their silence. They became pure reflection, sand, wind, light, and spirit mingling into one long, unbroken prayer. Now the night deepens. The desert cools. The wind slows to a soft hum. Far in the east, the first light of dawn begins to stir, faint and golden at the rim of the earth. The pilgrims rise once more, brushing the sand from their robes. Their faces glow softly in the half-light. The journey begins again. There is no finish line, no temple waiting beyond the horizon. The desert itself is the temple. Each day begins and ends within its endless silence. Their punishment has become devotion. Their suffering, a kind of music only the soul can hear. And as they walk, step after step, you feel something within you soften too, a reminder that peace is not found in arrival, but in the rhythm of the journey itself. The sun rises again, slow and radiant. It paints the dunes in strokes of gold and rose. The world glows, quiet and infinite. You can almost see the shimmer of heat return, the air vibrating like a mirage, the sand glistening as if dusted with light. But this time, the brightness feels kind. It no longer burns, it warms, it welcomes. Perhaps that is what forgiveness truly is, not escape from pain, but its gentle transformation. Each step, each breath, each heartbeat becomes part of a sacred rhythm that never ends. You feel yourself drifting with it now, as if you too are walking across that ancient sand, barefoot and serene, each step lighter than the last. The wind rises once more, carrying the faint hum of voices that no longer belong to this world. Their words dissolve into the air. The path has no end. The end is peace. The peace is the path. Their footprints stretch into the distance, fading slowly as the wind passes over them. The desert smooths itself again, as if no one ever walked there at all. But the memory remains, soft, glowing, eternal, woven into every grain of sand. Now as you breathe, imagine that sand beneath your own feet. Feel the warmth of the sun softening into gold. Hear the wind hum a melody older than time. You are walking too, gently, peacefully, endlessly. Every thought, every worry, every sorrow is lifted by the air and carried away. Only stillness remains. Let it hold you now. Let it cradle you like the soft dunes beneath a sleeping pilgrim. The stars will watch over you. The desert will keep your secrets, and the sun will rise for you again and again. Rest now, traveler of light. You have walked far enough for tonight. The sands are still. The sky is kind. Let the rhythm of the eternal steps carry you into sleep. Let your breath become the desert wind. Let your spirit rest beneath the quiet golden sun. Now drift onward and sleep, for the gods of the desert have already forgiven you, and the journey, like the night, has become peace. The night has settled upon the slopes of Delphi. Silver light spills gently over the stones, tracing the curves of old temples and the paths once walked by pilgrims long ago. The air is soft and cool, breathing across the sacred groves. Somewhere, a night bird sings, a slow hollow note that drifts and fades. The trees seem to listen, and the earth seems to hum with quiet memory. This is the land of whispering pines and endless echoes, where silence itself once spoke the language of gods. Beneath the moon's tender gaze, the hills shimmer like sleeping beasts. The marble ruins glisten with dew, each column standing like a sentinel between the world of man and the dreams of the divine. Let the listener breathe now. Let the sound of the wind through olive leaves be the beginning. Here, time loosens its hold. Every sound, every light, every breath feels sacred. Long ago, seekers came to Delphi not to shout, but to listen. They traveled from distant lands, across the dust and over the sea, not for wealth, not for power, but for peace. Each traveler carried within their chest a storm of guilt, questions, or longing. And here in this mountain cradle they found a gentler sky. At the heart of the sanctuary, the temple of Apollo stood, a place of music, prophecy, and stillness. The air was thick with incense, scented with myrrh and cedar. In its quiet corners, 1,000 prayers floated like smoke toward the rafters. Every breath was a small confession. Every silence was a hymn. They said the god Apollo spoke through the wind that curled between the marble walls. His voice was not thunder. It was the rustle of cypress leaves, the murmur of streams beneath the moonlight. It was the voice one could only hear after long silence, the voice that lived inside the quiet heart. When the pilgrims arrived, they were not welcomed with feasts or celebration. Instead, they were greeted with a soft nod, a bowl of cool water, and silence. The priestesses, women wrapped in pale robes, their hair bound with olive branches, led them into the grove. They moved like shadows, slow and graceful, as if time itself obeyed their rhythm. "Leave behind the noise," one would whisper. "Leave behind the weight." The pilgrims obeyed. They removed their sandals, letting the earth kiss their feet. They washed their hands in still pools where moonlight floated. And as they stepped deeper into the grove, the world behind them, the world of war, of trade, of endless voices, began to dissolve. For 3 days they would fast. No food, no sound. Only water, the breath, and the wind. They would sit among the stones and trees, facing the horizon, letting the silence cleanse them. Each hunger pang was a memory surfacing. Each drop of dew upon their lips was a reminder of life's quiet mercy. The priestesses did not punish with fire or blade. Their rituals were soft, woven from patience, humility, and stillness. To them, suffering was not a wound, but a doorway. They believed the soul, like a mirror clouded by dust, could be cleared by gentle winds, not storms. When one seeker wept for his sins, the priestess touched his forehead with a leaf dipped in cool water. "Do not fear your tears," she whispered. They are the salt of your cleansing." When another grew restless in silence, trembling with thoughts he could not control, she laid a small stone upon his palm. "Hold it," she said. "Let your mind grow as still as this." And when he opened his hand, hours later, he swore he could feel the stone breathe with him. At twilight, the grove would glow. Lanterns of bronze hung from branches, their flames small and steady. The air smelled of thyme and burning resin. The priestesses would walk in a slow circle, their bare feet brushing over soft moss, singing under their breath. Not words, but tones that echoed like waves on a distant shore. The seekers, now quiet and hollowed of pride, would close their eyes and listen. Each sound carried something ancient, a teaching, a memory, a reminder that pain, too, could be sacred when held with gentleness. In that soft music there was no judgment, only acceptance, only love that did not need to be named. They called it the listening of the soul. It was not prayer in the way others prayed, no kneeling, no repetition. It was the art of being open, the practice of stillness until the heart itself became a temple. And within that temple, forgiveness would arrive like dawn, slow, golden, inevitable. For forgiveness, they believed, was not given by gods above, but by the silence within. When one became quiet enough, the divine would whisper, "You are already forgiven." The moon rose higher, silvering the marble and painting the trees with soft light. Far below, the valley slept. Even the river, which had rushed endlessly through the canyons, seemed to pause in reverence. A young woman, one of the seekers, sat at the edge of the grove. Her eyes were closed. Her hands rested upon her knees. She had walked from the islands of the Aegean, her heart burdened with grief for a life lost at sea. For many nights she had dreamt of storms, of waves pulling her downward. But here, beneath the moon of Delphi, her dreams began to soften. The wind no longer howled, it sighed. The sea inside her no longer raged. It shimmered, calm and endless. The priestess stood beside her, silent. Only when the woman opened her eyes did the priestess speak, voice barely louder than breath. "The gods do not wish for you to suffer forever," she said. "They wish for you to remember." "Remember?" The woman asked. "That love never truly drowns. It only changes form. Like water, it flows through time and returns as rain, as river, as tear. You do not lose it. You only learn to carry it more gently." And in that moment, the woman wept. But her tears were not pain anymore. They were release. The earth beneath her drank them quietly, as if taking her sorrow back into its keeping. Days passed in this rhythm. Silence, fasting, small whispers. The body grew lighter. The heart grew clear. Every step in the grove felt sacred, as though the soil remembered every foot that had ever touched it. The seekers would wake at dawn to the sound of wind bells, their tones floating like dreams across the valley. They would bathe in cold spring water, their reflections rippling into the face of the morning sun. And as they looked into the water, they would see not sin or guilt, but renewal, a quiet rebirth. It was said that Apollo himself watched over the grove not from the sky, but through the silence, that he walked among the trees, unseen, his presence felt in the warm drift of wind upon one's cheek, or in the sudden calm that came when a heart forgave itself. When the pilgrims finally prepared to leave, the priestesses gathered them one last time. The moon hung low, vast and golden, trembling upon the horizon. Each pilgrim carried a small token, a stone, a leaf, a drop of oil sealed in clay, something to remind them that peace was never far. "Do not seek the gods in thunder," the eldest priestess said softly. "They dwell in whispers, in the hush between your breaths. When you walk home and hear the wind move through branches, remember that it is the same wind that passed through this grove. It will always find you." The pilgrims bowed. They turned toward the path that wound down through the olive trees, the air around them glowing faintly, as if the moonlight followed in their steps. Each footstep was slower, softer, no longer a march through life, but a dance with it. Their burdens had not vanished. They had changed shape, turned into lessons carved in light. Now the grove stands empty once more. The night deepens. The moon climbs higher still, spilling its silver blessings upon the ancient stones. The trees whisper to one another, passing secrets of peace through their leaves. And the wind carries the faintest echo of a hymn, the same melody that once lulled weary travelers to sleep. It lingers on the air, a memory that hums beneath the world's noise. Even now, if you listen, truly listen, you may hear it. A gentle sound that asks for nothing. A quiet voice that says only, rest. So let your breath slow. Let your body grow weightless. The world outside fades like mist on water. The moon watches over all, silent and eternal. The stars drift, unhurried, across the endless sky. Somewhere the whisper of Apollo's grove still moves, not in words, but in calm, invisible waves. Let it reach you. Let it hold you. Let it remind you that peace is not found. It is remembered. Now rest, as the stars return. Drift onward beneath the moon of Delphi. The world is quiet once more. And so are you. The air is thin and clear, like glass polished by the hands of eternity. You stand at the edge of the world, where the sky folds into the mountains, and silence has learned to breathe. The wind moves softly through the prayer flags, each one faded by time, its edges trembling with whispers carried from centuries ago. Below you, in a hollow carved by ancient ice, lies a lake so still it mirrors the heavens without a single ripple. It is said that the monks of this high temple once called it the Lake of Reflected Souls, a place where a person could see not their face, but their essence. It shines like liquid silver, a mirror between earth and sky, life and afterlife. Here even the sun seems gentle, as though humbled by the stillness. Snow drifts down from unseen peaks, melting before it touches the water. The air smells faintly of cedar smoke and juniper resin rising from the low fires lit near the temple steps. And from far across the lake, a single bell tolls. Slow, deep, and patient, the sound rolling through the mountains like a long exhale. Let the sound settle into you. Let it move through your bones. Each note a reminder, the world is vast, but peace can fit in the space between two heartbeats. The temple beside the lake was carved into stone centuries ago. Its walls are simple, washed by sun and rain. Golden wheels line the paths, engraved with prayers that turn endlessly with the mountain wind. Each spin is said to release a wish for peace, for clarity, for release from the circles of suffering. The monks who tended this place lived as gently as falling snow. They spoke little, ate little, dreamed quietly. At dawn, they would gather by the frozen shore, their robes wrapped tight around their bodies, their breaths rising like mist. There they stood, knee-deep in the glacial water, and began to chant. Their voices did not rise like a song, but hummed low, like the mountain's own pulse. Deep, resonant, steady. Each syllable drifted across the water and vanished into the mist, as though the sound itself was dissolving, returning to silence. They believed that the lake held all reflections, not only of faces, but of souls. To look into it was to see everything one had ever been, every kindness, every wound, every breath. But only in stillness could the truth appear. The smallest ripple, a movement, a thought, could distort the image. So they learned to stand motionless. They learned to breathe like the wind moves, softly without resistance, until even the lake began to mirror their calm. The ritual was old, older than the temple, older perhaps than language. It was called the chant of dissolution. Each breath a surrender, each sound a release. They sang not to beg the gods for mercy, but to remind the soul how to let go. Everything returns, they said. The sound returns to silence. The flame returns to ash. The soul returns to light. And so they chanted as the cold bit into their skin. They stood unmoving as frost gathered at the hems of their robes, as their reflections wavered faintly upon the water's face. The pain was not punishment. It was prayer. Through it, they learned to see beyond the body, beyond fear, into the great stillness that breathes beneath all things. Sometimes the mist would rise thick from the lake, blurring the world into shades of silver and white. In that haze, the monks looked like shapes of light, neither alive nor dead, simply present. And in the quiet that followed, a strange warmth would bloom in the chest, as if the mountain itself had drawn them into its heart. They spoke of rebirth not as a grand promise, but as a rhythm, the turning of the seasons, the drifting of snow into water, water into cloud, cloud into rain again. Nothing ends, whispered their teacher. It only changes form. A monk who had lost his way, burdened by guilt, by longing, by the memory of a life gone wrong, came one night to the edge of the lake. He had not spoken in many moons. He believed he was unworthy of peace. The abbot found him standing barefoot in the icy water, staring at the reflection of the moon. He did not call out. He did not stop him. He simply stood beside him in silence. For a long while neither spoke. The only sound was the wind moving through the pines. Finally the abbot whispered, "Do you see it?" The monk shook his head. "All I see is my failure." The abbot smiled, not with pity but with the softness of snow landing on an open hand. "Then stay until the ripples fade," he said. "When the water forgets your shape, you will see what remains." And they stood together in stillness until the wind stilled, until the moon spread unbroken across the surface. In that perfect mirror, the monk saw not himself, but light, clear, endless, forgiving. And in that moment, the ache inside him melted away, like frost touched by dawn. This was the secret of the lake of reflected souls. It was not a place of judgment, but of remembrance. Not a mirror for vanity, but for truth. Each ripple, each breath, each small disturbance reminded the seeker how restless the mind could be. And as the surface calmed, as the water smoothed again into glass, the seeker learned that peace was not given. It was uncovered. It had been there all along, hidden beneath the waves of thought. So the monks continued their practice through centuries. Always the same, always quiet. In winter and summer, in snow and sun, they chanted. Their voices wove into the wind. Their words became part of the mountain. Travelers who came upon the lake often said that the air itself seemed to hum, a sound too low to be heard, but deep enough to be felt in the bones, the sound of 1,000 prayers sleeping beneath the water's skin. At dusk, when the sky blushed with the last light of day, the monks would light butter lamps along the shore. The flames flickered golden, trembling in the thin air. Each lamp was a soul, they said, shining for a moment in the great night. As the wind grew colder, the monks would bow low, their hands pressed together, and whisper, "May all beings find release." Then, one by one, they would turn and walk back toward the temple, their footsteps soft against the frozen earth. The lamps would remain, glowing faintly across the lake, their reflections stretching into stars. And in that gentle twilight, it became impossible to tell which lights belonged to heaven and which belonged to earth. The line between the two was gone, dissolved, as all things eventually are. Sometimes, the mountain itself would sing, not with words, but with sound, a deep vibration, the echo of wind caught between the peaks. The monks believed this was the mountain remembering them, speaking their prayers back into the world. It was the voice of eternity saying, "You were never separate. You were always home." They would smile then, eyes closed, feeling the hum through their skin, through their bones. And in that resonance, they understood there was no end to anything, only transformation, only return. As night falls now, the lake lies hidden beneath a sheet of moonlight. The stars above it shimmer faintly, mirrored perfectly below. Even the wind has grown shy, unwilling to disturb the fragile calm. The monks have gone to rest, their chants lingering like smoke in the air. The temple bells ring softly, once, twice, and then fade into silence. If you were to walk to the edge of that lake now, your reflection would wait for you, patient, still. And if you leaned close enough, you might see more than your face. You might see the light that has followed you through every life. The same light that once flickered in a candle, that once glowed in a mother's eyes, that once shimmered in a tear. It has never left you. It never will. Breathe softly now. Imagine the wind brushing your skin, the faint scent of pine and cold water in the air. You stand by the lake of reflected souls, watching your image dissolve into silver. The surface ripples once, twice, and then grows still again. In that stillness, you remember. You were never the storm. You were always the lake. Let the thought drift through you, like a leaf carried by a gentle current. Let it rest where the mind grows quiet and peace begins to bloom. The mountains stand tall, timeless. The stars lean close, listening, and the lake continues to reflect, not what the world shows, but what the soul remembers. Now the wind softens. The lamps across the shore flicker once, then fade, their light absorbed into the night. The chants of the monks become only breath, ancient, eternal, everywhere. The water sighs, the mountains sleep, and above it all, the moon shines wide and forgiving, as though holding every heart that has ever sought peace. So rest now. Let your thoughts ripple and settle. Let your breath become still as the lake. You are reflected in the silence. You are held by the light. You are already home. Now rest as the stars return. Let the mountains dream. Let the lake remember. And drift, quietly, endlessly, into peace. The night was heavy with warmth. Far beyond the dunes, where the desert opened into a vast plain of quiet stone, an old temple slept beneath the stars. Its walls, half buried by sand, shimmered faintly under the moonlight, as if remembering the glow of ancient fire. Wind whispered through the cracks of the stone. Inside, small lamps flickered, feeding on oil as old as the prayers once spoken there. The air was filled with the scent of smoke, not harsh or choking, but gentle, like the breath of something sacred that still lingered. This was the Temple of the Serpent, once dedicated to the goddess Ningishida, the guardian of rebirth, the serpent who shed her skin so that life could begin again. Those who came here sought not wealth or power, but purification, a renewal of spirit through flame. They believed that pain could burn away the shadow of the soul, that what remained after the ash was the truest self. Tonight, the temple waited. Its silence was not empty, but full, like a held breath before dawn. You can almost see them now, the ancient devotees, walking toward the temple gates. Barefoot, wrapped in thin linen robes, each carries a clay bowl of burning oil. The flames sway gently as they move, small stars in human hands. The firelight touches their faces, tired faces, quiet faces, each marked with the soft dust of travel. They do not speak. Only the slow rhythm of their steps breaks the silence. Every movement is deliberate, reverent, as though even the sand beneath their feet is sacred. Above them, the moon looks down, a silver eye, calm and watchful. The wind moves softly around their ankles, carrying away the traces of the world they leave behind. Within the temple, the air hums. You can feel the weight of memory here. Thousands of footsteps, thousands of whispered prayers, still echoing faintly in the stone. The fires have long since cooled, but their spirit has not faded. The serpent goddess was not worshipped in fear. She was the mother of transformation, the one who reminded her children that to change is to live. She taught that everything must shed its old form before it can become whole again. So the devotees would come to her temple seeking renewal. They would kneel before the great brazier in the center of the hall, its flames bright and alive, and offer a fragment of themselves. A lock of hair, a memory, a name whispered into the smoke. It was not sacrifice. It was surrender. The priests who guided them were gentle. Their eyes were calm, their hands steady. They would anoint the foreheads of the seekers with ash and oil, whispering, "The fire does not destroy what is true. It only reveals." Then the seekers would stand before the sacred flame, feeling its warmth on their skin, watching as the smoke twisted upward like a serpent rising toward the stars. The ritual began with silence. Always silence first, for silence is where the soul begins to listen. The devotees would close their eyes and imagine their burdens, fears, griefs, mistakes, all coiled within them like a sleeping serpent, and with every breath they would feed that inner flame, not with anger, but with acceptance. Slowly the coil would loosen. Slowly the fire would awaken. As they stood in the warmth, they were not punished, but purified. The flame that surrounded them was the same flame that lived within their hearts, eternal, bright, forgiving. And when they opened their eyes, the fire before them seemed different. It no longer burned, it breathed. Each flicker of light was like a heartbeat, reminding them that the goddess lived within everything, even in the smallest spark. Outside the temple, the desert lay in stillness. The stars spread like scattered salt across the blackness. A gentle wind stirred the sand, whispering through the dry grass and the hollow bones of ancient trees. In the far distance, the faint cry of a night bird echoed once and faded. Everything else was quiet. It was said that if you stood outside the temple long enough, you could hear the faint hiss of the serpent herself. Not a sound of danger, but of rebirth, the sound of the world shedding its old skin. Inside, one seeker stepped forward. Her name was no longer spoken, for in this place, names were left behind. She had come from a far-off village, carrying sorrow that clung to her like a shadow. She believed her spirit had grown heavy, that her heart was full of ash. She knelt before the flame, her eyes closed. The warmth touched her cheeks, her lips, her hands. At first it hurt. The heat, the memory, the weight of what she carried. But then the pain softened. The fire did not burn her. It welcomed her. The serpent priests began to chant softly, a low rhythmic hum that matched the heartbeat of the earth. Their words were old, older than any written language, but their meaning was clear. let go. Let the fire remember you. As the chant deepened, she breathed with it. Each breath became slower, each exhale a release. She felt her thoughts dissolve into the air, her body becoming light, her heart loosening. Tears came, not from sadness, but from surrender. The flame flickered bright and calm as if nodding in acceptance, and then, in the stillness that followed, she saw it. Not with her eyes, but with her soul. A serpent made of light coiling gently within the fire. It did not strike, it did not hiss. It only watched her, patient and endless. For a moment she understood. The serpent was not outside her, it was her spirit, her strength, her truth, waiting to rise once more. The priest said that when one looked upon the sacred fire with pure intention, the serpent goddess whispered back, not in words but in warmth, not in lessons, but in feeling. Sometimes the seekers described a sudden sense of peace, as if they were made of the same light as the flame. Others spoke of a vision, a single scale shimmering in gold, falling into the ashes as a sign of renewal. But most said nothing at all. They simply left the temple lighter, as though a layer of themselves had been gently peeled away. They would walk back into the desert beneath the stars, their shadows stretching long across the dunes. The cool air kissed their skin where the fire had once touched, and every step felt like a prayer returned. The moon watched over them, calm and forgiving. Behind them, the temple's flames flickered through the cracks of its walls, still burning, still remembering. It is said that those flames never truly died, even when the temple fell into ruin, when the sand swallowed its stones and the world forgot its name. A faint glow remained beneath the surface, a slow, steady pulse deep within the earth. Travelers who crossed that land at night sometimes spoke of a warmth beneath their feet, even when the wind was cold. They said it felt like walking over a heartbeat, soft and rhythmic, as though the serpent still slept below. And in moments when the sky was clear and the stars burned bright, you could see a shimmer rise from the dunes, faint, golden, like breath on glass. It was the serpent's promise that transformation never ends. The fire never leaves. It only hides until the soul is ready to see it again. Now let the image rest in your mind. A temple of stone and silence. A flame that does not burn but heals. A serpent of light curled around your heart, reminding you to shed what no longer belongs to you. Feel the warmth on your skin. It does not harm you. It softens you, the way sunlight softens the edge of the morning. You breathe in and the fire breathes with you. You exhale and the flame sighs in return. There is no fear here. Only change, only renewal. The fire flickers lower now. The chanting fades. The night grows calm once more. The stars above the desert seem closer, as though bending down to listen. You stand quietly in the glow, feeling your heart move with the rhythm of the flame. Slow, gentle, endless. Every breath is a prayer, every heartbeat a rebirth. The air grows cooler. Ash drifts softly around your feet, glowing faintly before fading into the sand. And from somewhere deep within, you hear it, the whisper of the serpent, tender and calm. Rest now. The old skin is gone. The moon climbs higher. The fire within the temple fades into embers. The desert sighs, a long, quiet exhale. Everything returns to stillness. You breathe once more, and the world breathes with you. No smoke, no shadow, only light. The serpent sleeps again, coiled in the heart of the mountain, her warmth hidden but eternal. She will wait for the next traveler, the next seeker, the next soul ready to be remade. For now she dreams, and so do you. The sands drift softly around her resting place. The wind hums its ancient song, and in that lullaby of fire and silence, your spirit begins to settle. You are no longer heavy. You are no longer bound. You are the flame. You are the renewal. Let your breath fall quiet. Let the last embers fade, and rest deeply, endlessly, as the serpent sleeps beneath the stars. Now drift onward, into the warmth, into the peace, into the still, glowing heart of the night. The air was soft and still. Mist moved gently across the mountain path, wrapping the world in a thin veil of silver. Somewhere in the distance, a bell chimed once, its sound traveling like a small wave through the morning hush. Beyond the mist, a garden waited. It was not grand nor filled with color. It was quiet, a sanctuary of stone, moss, and silence. Each rock was covered in green velvet moss, shaped by time and touch. Each tree stood bowed in reverence, its branches heavy with dew, and all around, the air hummed with a peace too deep to name. This was the Garden of Silent Stones, where pilgrims came not to speak, but to release. Here, words were unnecessary. Only breath, only stillness. At the entrance stood a low wooden gate, weathered by centuries of rain. It marked the boundary between the noise of the world and the silence of the soul. Those who crossed it did so barefoot, feeling the cool earth beneath their feet. They came carrying stones, each one chosen from the river far below. The stones were not symbols of punishment. They were burdens given shape. Each pilgrim selected one that felt right in their hands, not too heavy, not too light, and pressed it against their heart. Before beginning the walk, they whispered into the stone, letting their sorrow, guilt, or longing seep into its weight. Then they placed it upon their back, and the path began. The garden stretched along the side of the mountain, curving through bamboo groves and old shrines worn smooth by prayer. Every few steps, the soft crunch of gravel joined the whisper of wind. Birdsong floated faintly from the trees, gentle, unhurried. There was no race to finish the path. There was only the rhythm of breath and step. Each pilgrim moved slowly, carrying their chosen stone. Their robes brushed against the moss, their heads bowed slightly, as though listening to the voice of the earth beneath them. And though they walked alone, the silence between them felt like a bond, quiet souls moving together through the breath of the mountain. In ancient times, it was said that the monks who tended this garden believed every burden, no matter how heavy, could become a teacher. The stones were not meant to be discarded in anger or pain, but offered back to the earth with gratitude. To carry the stone was to honor the lesson within it. To place it down was to let the heart open once more. The monks taught that the garden itself was alive. Each patch of moss, each curve of the path, remembered those who had walked before. When rain fell, it was said to wash away not only the dust, but the sorrow that clung to the stones. And when the mist rose, it carried those prayers upward, dissolving them into sky. You can almost see them now, pilgrims moving through the fog, each step measured, each breath steady. A man carries a stone as large as his chest, his shoulders trembling with its weight. Yet his face is calm, his eyes soft. A young woman walks beside a narrow pond, holding a small stone close to her heart. Tears fall quietly, but she smiles through them, as though something inside her is beginning to loosen. There is no judgment here, no eyes watching, no voice correcting, only the gentle awareness of the mountain itself, vast, patient, and kind. The sound of trickling water joins the song of wind. Somewhere deeper in the garden, a wooden ladle dips into a spring, its motion rhythmic and serene. The world breathes slowly. At the center of the garden stands a small shrine. Its roof is covered in moss, its lanterns dark with age. Before it lies a pool so still it mirrors the clouds. Here the pilgrims come to rest their stones. There is no ceremony, no command. They simply stand for a while, feeling the coolness of the water in the air, the steadiness of their own heartbeat. When they are ready, they kneel, and one by one they place their stones at the base of the shrine. The sound of stone meeting stone is soft, like a sigh. It is not the sound of burden, but of release. Each stone joins hundreds, thousands of others, forming a low, uneven mound, each one carrying a story the world will never hear. The moss slowly claims them all, turning their edges green, making them part of the garden's body. The mountain accepts them without question, without condition. It simply holds them, the way time holds memory, gently, forever. It is said that when night falls, the stones hum softly. Their vibrations rise like music from beneath the moss. Some say it is the voice of the burdens themselves, transformed, no longer heavy, singing their way into peace. Others believe it is the mountain breathing, thanking those who came to let go. Whatever the truth, the sound is beautiful. It rolls through the trees like low thunder made of silk, calming every living thing it touches. Even the birds, even the flowing streams, seem to quiet themselves to listen. The monks used to say, "When a heart empties, the earth sings." And in the garden of silent stones, the earth has been singing for centuries. The garden changes with the seasons. In spring, soft petals drift across the stones, their color pale as dawn. In summer, the air is thick with the scent of pine and rain. Autumn brings a river of golden leaves that whisper as they fall. And in winter, everything is covered in snow, a white silence that feels almost holy. Yet the pilgrims never stop coming. They come in sandals, in bare feet, in robes faded by time. They come with hands trembling from age or sorrow, and the garden receives them all. Some walk the path once and never return. Others return year after year, carrying new stones, smaller each time. By the end of their journeys, they come empty-handed, walking only for the joy of stillness. Their hearts have learned what the stones were always meant to teach: that to let go is to remember what it means to be free. You stand now at the edge of the shrine. The mist curls around your ankles like silk. The scent of wet earth fills your lungs, clean and grounding. You can feel the stone upon your back, its weight steady, not cruel. You walk slowly, following the same ancient path, your steps guided by the rhythm of your own breath. Each inhale softens you, each exhale lightens you. The sound of the small stream nearby becomes a lullaby, steady, eternal. When you reach the shrine, you kneel. The stone presses gently against your palms. It is warm from your journey, shaped now by your hands, by your story. You lower it to the pile, hearing the soft click as it meets the others. It is done. No fire, no tears, no struggle, only stillness. And in that stillness, something inside you unwinds. The weight that once felt endless fades into the earth. In its place remains only calm, wide and deep, like the pool before you. The mist grows thinner now. The morning light begins to reach through the trees, brushing the moss in soft gold. The pilgrims are gone. The stones rest, shining faintly with dew. A single sparrow lands on the shrine's edge, shakes its feathers, and sings a short, clear note. It sounds like gratitude, small and bright, a perfect sound in the quiet air. The mountain listens, the garden breathes, and somewhere far away, a bell chimes again. Its tone carries over the hills, over the valleys, into the hearts of those who sleep and those who wander. It is the sound of release, the sound of everything finding its rightful place. Now let the image stay with you. The garden bathed in mist, the stones resting in peace, the air cool and kind. The pilgrims gone, their burdens lifted. The mountain quiet, holding all that was once heavy. Breathe softly. Feel the echo of that stillness within you. There is no need to move, no need to search. You have already arrived. The sound of the wind moves gently through the bamboo. The stones hum faintly as if in dream. The garden sleeps once more beneath the tender morning sky. Let yourself drift with it. Slow, effortless, free. Let your breath fall into rhythm with the mountain's ancient pulse. You are part of this silence now, part of the peace that has no name. The moss glows faintly in the first light. The mist fades. The day begins, and as the last sound of the bell fades into stillness, you rest, calm, weightless, unburdened, among the silent stones. Now rest as the stars return. Let the garden hold you. Let the quiet remember you. Let the sleep take you, gently, endlessly, into peace. The first light of dawn rises gently over the Andean peaks. It does not rush. It spills like honey over stone, warming the thin air, painting the snow in shades of soft gold and tender rose. The mountains seem to breathe, slow, ancient breaths drawn from the heart of the world. Far below, where the sky meets the trembling horizon, a path of red earth winds upward like a sleeping serpent. It is narrow, uneven, almost hidden by moss and mist. But for those who have walked it, it is sacred, known as the Crimson Path of the Sunborn. It was said that the path could not be found by the eyes, but only by the soul that remembered where light first touched it. Those who came here came not to seek the sun, but to become its reflection. The high wind moves softly now, brushing across the grass and whispering through the mountain's quiet bones. Somewhere a drum sounds, distant, slow, like a heartbeat echoing through the valley. It marks the beginning of another journey. At the edge of the cliff, a figure stands cloaked in woven wool dyed the color of dawn. A pilgrim, breathing in the thin, cold air. In their hands, they hold a small bowl carved from obsidian. Inside it lies nothing but a single ember, glowing faintly, a living breath of the sun itself. Every morning, the pilgrims of the Crimson Path would carry the ember from one shrine to the next, keeping it alive through wind and rain. They walked barefoot upon the stones, their steps slow and mindful. Each step was a prayer, each breath a surrender. To the watchers from the valleys below, it may have looked like suffering. To those upon the path, it was not pain. It was remembrance, the returning of light to its source. Long ago, the priests of the high temples taught that the sun was not a god to be worshipped from afar. It lived within the chest of every being. Its warmth burned in the heart, and its light shone through the eyes. But when the heart grew heavy, when shadows filled the mind, the inner flame dimmed, and so the pilgrims came, to rekindle it through endurance, through silence, through the slow labor of devotion. The Crimson Path wound for miles along the ridge, narrow and treacherous. The air grew thinner, the light harsher, the stones sharper. Yet the pilgrims moved with grace. Their faces were calm, their hands steady, their chants low and deep. Sometimes they would pause beside a pool of melted snow. They would kneel and whisper to their reflections, not in words, but in breath. They would dip their fingers into the icy water and trace the mark of the sun across their foreheads. In that act, the body and the spirit met, and the cold became warmth again. It was said that those who endured the Crimson Path were called the Sunborn, not because they reached the summit, but because they learned how to shine through their trials. At the heart of their teaching was a belief that light and pain were not enemies, but twins. The sun, they said, burns not to destroy, but to purify. In the same way, endurance stripped the spirit of its illusions, leaving only the essence that could not be broken. The pilgrims understood this. Their silence was their song, their steps, a rhythm that matched the pulse of the mountains. With each rise and fall of their feet, the earth received their prayer. The dust that clung to their skin was sacred dust, the residue of becoming. As the sun climbed higher, its warmth deepened the colors of the mountains. The air shimmered with soft heat. Tiny motes of dust and pollen glowed like drifting stars. Along the path, shrines appeared, small circles of stone built by hands long gone. Each one held a relic, a feather, a bowl, a single flame, a polished mirror. The pilgrims would stop before them, kneeling in quiet reverence. They would not ask for anything. They would simply breathe, letting the sunlight fall across their faces. To them, prayer was not a request. It was an opening, a letting in of what already lived around and within them. As night approached, the air turned cool again, carrying the scent of wild herbs and river mist. The sun sank behind the farthest peak, turning the sky the color of burning coals. And though the pilgrims walked in fading light, they did not fear the dark. They believed that the sun did not truly leave. It only traveled inward to rest inside their hearts. At dusk, they reached a plateau where the stones formed a wide circle. Here they built small fires, each one lit by the ember carried from the beginning of the path. The flames flickered softly, not fierce but alive, like the eyes of gentle guardians watching through the smoke. The pilgrims sat in silence, cross-legged upon the ground. Their bodies ached, their feet were bruised. Yet peace filled them. Not joy, not pride, but a quiet acceptance that felt like truth. One by one, they placed their hands above the fire. They let the heat touch their palms, their foreheads, their hearts, and they whispered, "Let the flame within burn as the flame without." The fire crackled softly in answer. Legend says that when the Sunborn completed their journey, they no longer saw the world as separate from themselves. They walked back down the mountain, carrying no ember, no relic, no proof, only light in their eyes and stillness in their breath. They did not speak of what they had endured. They did not need to. Their presence alone was enough to remind others of the quiet strength hidden inside every soul. Villagers would see them passing by, robes dusty, faces serene, and feel their own hearts grow lighter. Some would follow them partway up the mountain, curious, yearning, but the Sunborn never called them forward. They simply kept walking, their silence teaching what words could not. As centuries passed, the rituals of the Crimson Path faded from memory. The temples crumbled, the shrines were buried beneath moss and rain. Only the mountains remembered. Only the wind carried the old songs. Yet even now, when dawn breaks over the Andes, the light seems to move with intention. It slides across the cliffs as if retracing the path once walked by the Sunborn. And sometimes, in the stillness before sunrise, travelers swear they hear the sound of feet upon gravel, slow, steady, eternal. Perhaps it is only the mountain shifting. Perhaps it is the echo of devotion that never truly dies. You stand now upon that same ancient path. The air is cool against your skin. The horizon glows faintly like the edge of a dream. Beneath your feet, the earth is firm and red, dust that has known the touch of countless souls. You take a breath. The thin air fills your lungs, clear and sharp. Your heart beats softly, like a drum beneath your ribs. You begin to walk. Each step feels deliberate, unhurried. The ground shifts beneath you, small stones rolling away. Above, the sky grows lighter, streaks of pink and gold bleeding into one another like watercolor upon silk. There is no need to reach the end. The path itself is enough. You feel the warmth of the sun rising behind you, brushing the back of your neck. The weight in your body begins to change, not gone, but gentler, as if shared by the mountain. In the quiet, you sense the breath of those who once walked here. They are not ghosts, but echoes of peace. They walk beside you, step for step, silent and kind. Far ahead, the path widens. A low stone altar rests at the edge of a cliff. Upon it, a small flame still burns, the last ember of the sun carried by unseen hands. You approach it slowly. The wind moves through your hair, warm now, carrying the faint scent of cedar and smoke. You kneel. The flame wavers as you draw near, then steadies, as if recognizing something within you. You lower your head and breathe upon it, not to extinguish it, but to join your breath with its rhythm. For a moment the light flares. It brightens the stones around you, painting them in gold. Then it settles again, quiet and calm. In that stillness you understand, the light you seek has never been far. It has always lived inside your own breath, waiting for you to notice. The sun now lifts fully above the peaks, vast and patient. Its warmth spreads across the land, over rivers, over valleys, into every quiet corner of the waking world. The Crimson Path glows beneath its touch, alive again, sacred again. The air hums with soft energy, like a heart remembering its pulse. You feel it within you, not as fire, but as a deep and tender light, settling behind your ribs. Every breath feeds it. Every exhale releases its warmth back into the sky. The mountains seem to sigh, their long shadows retreating into peace. The wind stills, the light lingers, and in that golden silence you rest. Now, let yourself drift in the warmth. Let the air around you soften. Let the sun above you become a gentle weight upon your skin. There is no more path to walk, no more burden to bear. The journey is complete. The Crimson Path of the Sunborn continues to wind through the ages, invisible yet eternal, written in the dust of all who have walked toward light through endurance, through silence, through faith in what cannot be seen. And as you breathe, the same light glows quietly in your chest, a flame that will never fade. The day deepens. The wind hums softly once more. The mountains rest under a clear blue sky. You close your eyes and feel the warmth behind your lids, the rhythm of your heart aligning with the slow pulse of the earth. There is no separation now. No mountain, no sky, no self, no sun. Only stillness. Only peace. Let it stay with you. Let it cradle you in light. Now rest as the sun returns to the horizon once more. Rest as the breath of the world slows to match your own. Rest, child of the light, for the path has ended, and you have become the dawn itself. The world begins with the sound of water, a soft, endless hush, neither loud nor quiet, but steady, eternal. It rolls through the darkness like breath through the body of the earth. Somewhere, beyond the cliffs and the silver sands, the sea waits. It has waited since before memory, before the first word, before the first dream. Tonight, the sea lies calm beneath a half-moon. Its surface glows faintly like polished glass, each wave folding gently into the next. Along the shore, white foam glimmers like threads of silk, drifting and dissolving. The air is warm and carries the scent of salt and faraway rain. There are no ships now.
No sails against the horizon.
Only the whisper of wind through the dry grass above the cliffs and the quiet rhythm of the waves below. But once, long ago, this place was full of voices. The voices of sailors praying to gods who lived unseen beneath the sea. They called it the Sea of Forgotten Voices. Not because the voices were truly lost, but because they were carried away, absorbed by the wind, by the tides, by the deep. Every whisper, every song, every cry for mercy sank into the water's heart, where it was softened into silence. The sailors believed the sea could hear them. They said that when the waves rose high and wild, it was the sea's way of answering, not in anger but in remembrance, for each storm was the echo of a forgotten prayer. They would kneel on the decks of their ships, eyes lifted toward the stars, and speak their offerings aloud. Some sang songs of courage, their voices trembling but sincere. Others said nothing at all, letting silence speak where words could not reach. And sometimes, when the moon was hidden and the sea turned black, they would weep, not from fear but from awe. For they knew that the sea was not to be conquered, only respected, only trusted. On the tallest cliff above the water stood a small temple built from pale stone. Its walls were smooth from centuries of wind, its steps worn by countless feet. Inside, lamps of clay burned with slow, steady flames. They gave no smoke, only warmth, a soft golden glow that flickered across the carved faces of forgotten gods. Fishermen would climb to this temple before each voyage. They carried shells filled with oil, bits of bread, and folded pieces of cloth scented with herbs. These were their offerings, not for favor, but for protection. They would place the gifts before the altar and whisper the old chant, to the sea that takes and gives, to the silence that remembers all. Then they would walk back down the narrow path to their boats, feeling lighter, calmer, as though a gentle hand had rested upon their shoulders. But the sea is a patient teacher. It teaches through surrender. It teaches through loss. There was once a sailor named Marin, whose name meant of the sea. He had sailed since boyhood, his skin darkened by years of sunlight, his eyes pale like stormlight. He did not fear the waves. He laughed when the winds grew wild and sang louder when the sky darkened. He believed the sea loved him, that it would never harm him. One evening, as he set sail with his crew, the horizon glowed a strange crimson. The air was still, too still, as if the world were holding its breath. The old priest on the cliff watched from the temple and knew what was coming. He whispered to the sea, asking it to be gentle. But the sea does not bargain. It only mirrors what it receives. That night, the storm came without warning. No rain, only wind, like 1,000 voices shouting all at once. The waves rose high as towers, black and furious. The ship groaned and twisted, the wood splintering beneath the force of the storm. Marin shouted orders, his voice lost in the roar. He fought the tiller, his muscles burning, his breath short. And then, all at once, the mast broke. A single bolt of lightning lit the water. White, blinding, holy. The sea opened, and Marin was gone. When the storm passed, the water stilled again. The dawn broke over a quiet, shimmering expanse. The shipwreck drifted in pieces upon the tide. Of Marin, there was no sign. The villagers mourned him as they did all who vanished to the deep. They lit candles in the temple and whispered his name into the wind. Some said that when the next storm came, they heard his voice in the thunder, singing still, fearless, and free. They said the sea had taken him not in cruelty, but in kinship. He had become one of its voices. No longer flesh, but breath upon the water. And so the sailors learned again what their ancestors had always known, that the sea does not punish. It reminds, it humbles, it teaches surrender, not defeat, but trust. When the waves rise, they said, do not fight them. When the wind screams, let it pass through you like song. When the storm rages, close your eyes and remember, you are not smaller than the sea. You are part of it. The centuries drifted on. Empires rose and fell. The sailors' chants faded into other tongues, other prayers. The temple above the cliff grew silent. Its lamps burned out. Its stones crumbled. But still, the sea sang. Its music carried through time, a melody without words, a rhythm older than language. And on some nights, when the wind moved just right, travelers said they could hear faint voices in the waves. Voices like sighs, like soft lullabies carried from far below the surface. Perhaps they were the souls of the sailors, still singing their devotion, or perhaps they were only the sea itself remembering them in sound. Tonight, under the same moon, the sea breathes again. The waves rise and fall with the slow rhythm of sleep. The cliffs glow pale in the moonlight, and the old path to the temple lies quiet, covered in moss and shadow. You walk there now, slowly, softly, barefoot upon the earth. The air tastes of salt. A cool wind moves through your hair, and somewhere far below, the waves murmur against the rocks. Each step feels ancient, like walking through memory itself. You reach the temple, or what remains of it. The roof is gone, open to the stars. The altar stands cracked, its carvings half faded. But the air here still feels alive, as if listening. You kneel before the stones and place your hands upon them. They are cool, smooth, faintly trembling with the pulse of the ocean below. You close your eyes. The sound of the sea rises steady and kind. It fills your ears, fills your chest, until you can no longer tell where your breath ends and the tide begins. In the dark behind your eyes, the sea begins to move. You see the waves stretching to infinity, each one glinting with 1,000 tiny stars. You see faces made of light, smiling, wordless, eternal. They drift upon the water like memories, carried but never lost. You hear their songs now, soft and slow, like the turning of the moon. No language, no meaning, only vibration and comfort. Each note melts into the next, until sound becomes silence, and silence becomes peace. In this silence, you understand what the sailors once knew, that prayer is not something spoken. It is the act of being still, of allowing the world to move through you without resistance, of trusting the unseen to carry you, always, back to shore. The sea moves beneath the stars. The tide hums low and calm. Somewhere a gull cries, a single fleeting note. Then even that fades, leaving only the whisper of waves. You feel your body growing lighter. Your thoughts drift outward like boats untethered. Each one floats gently upon the water until it disappears into the mist. There is nothing left to hold, nothing left to chase, only the sound of the sea. The same sound that once guided sailors home through darkness and storm. It whispers now softly to you. It says, you are safe, you are seen, you are carried. The rhythm of the waves becomes the rhythm of your breath. In and out, in and out. The sea breathes and you breathe with it. Below in the depths unseen, the forgotten voices still shimmer. They are not lost. They are part of the tide itself, woven into its rise and fall, its endless giving and receiving. Every wave that reaches the shore carries a fragment of their song, softened by time but never silenced. And so, when the sea sighs against the cliffs, it is not only water. It is memory. It is devotion. It is the sound of every heart that ever learned to surrender. The moon sinks lower. The sky turns a deep sleepy blue. The air grows cooler, wrapping around you like a blanket. The temple fades into shadow. The sea keeps breathing. Let yourself drift now. Let your thoughts move with the tide. Let the waves wash over your mind, gentle and endless. There is no need to remember where you are. The sea remembers for you. It holds every voice, every prayer, every dream whispered into its depths. You are part of that great stillness now. Not separate, not alone. Just another voice, soft and eternal, carried upon the water. Now rest as the stars return to their watch. Rest as the sea hums its lullaby. Rest, child of the tide. For the storm has passed, and the sea has taken you home. The night begins deep beneath the mountains. There is no wind here, no sound of leaves, no hum of life, only stillness. Stone walls rise like sleeping giants around an endless corridor of darkness. The air is cool, heavy with the scent of damp earth and ancient smoke. This is a place where time does not move, where even echoes seem to pause to listen. They called it the Cave of the Shadowed Flame, a place where light was not banished, but transformed. A place where men and women came not to find gods, but to face themselves. Long ago, when the valleys above were still covered with mist, there lived a small brotherhood of seekers. They were not kings or priests, but quiet wanderers who believed that wisdom hid in silence. They built no temples of gold. They sang no songs of praise. Instead, they built a shrine inside the earth, a cave that breathed like a sleeping beast. full of dark corridors and whispering firelight. The seekers would descend into the cave carrying a single flame, a torch wrapped in black cloth to dull its glow. They would walk barefoot, feeling the cold rock beneath their feet. Every step was a choice, to go deeper into the unknown, to leave behind the noise of the world above. At the heart of the cave was a chamber, vast and round, carved by water and time. In the center stood a single bowl of stone. Inside it a small flame burned, steady and soft. Its light did not reach the walls. It only glowed enough to reveal a ring of shadows. The flame never went out. No one knew who first lit it. The seekers believed it was born from the earth itself, a living spirit, a reminder that even in the deepest dark, something still burns. When a novice first entered the Brotherhood, their test was not strength or endurance. It was solitude. They would be led into the cave, handed a torch, and told to sit before the shadowed flame for one full day and one full night. No food, no sound, no company. At first, every novice thought the task would be simple. They believed they understood silence. But within an hour, the silence grew heavier than stone. Their own heartbeat echoed in their ears like thunder. Their breath sounded loud, almost foreign. And in the flicker of the faint light, their mind began to play its oldest songs, memories, regrets, fears they thought had long been buried. This was the true trial. To face oneself without distraction, to see not what the world reflected, but what lived inside the quiet. They said that in the first hours, one heard the world's noise fade, the chatter of the mind, the thoughts of daily life all sinking like sand in water. But as the hours stretched on, another sound began to rise, a deeper one, older and harder to name. It was the voice of the inner shadow, the part of the soul that whispered truths we try not to hear. The novices trembled before that voice. Some wept, some prayed, some sang softly to calm themselves. Others simply sat and watched the flame, trying to anchor themselves in its slow dance. The longer they stared, the more the flame seemed alive, breathing, moving, mirroring them. When their mind wandered, the flame grew dim. When they steadied, it burned brighter. The seekers believed this was no illusion, that the flame reflected the heart. The clearer the soul, the clearer its light. There was a story told among the brotherhood of a novice named Asha. She came to the cave in a season of drought, when the world above was dry and cracked, when the rivers had turned to dust. Her village had perished, her family gone, and her heart carried the heaviness of too many losses. She sought not wisdom but escape, a way to quiet the storm inside her chest. When she entered the cave, she could barely hold the torch. Her hands trembled, her breath came shallow. But she did as she was told. She sat before the flame and waited. The hours passed slowly. At first she tried to pray, but the words fell flat against the stone. Then she tried to sleep, but the silence would not let her rest. Every creak of the cave, every flicker of light made her flinch. She began to remember things she had tried to forget. Faces, voices, moments that hurt. She wanted to leave. She reached for her torch to rise, but when she did, the flame before her wavered, just slightly, as if sighing. Something in her stilled. She sat again and whispered softly, "Then let me stay." Time melted. The hours stretched until she lost count. Her tears came quietly, falling into the dust. And in that stillness, something began to shift. The silence no longer felt empty. It felt full of presence, full of meaning. She felt as though the cave itself was breathing with her. Each inhale brought peace. Each exhale released pain. The shadows around her no longer frightened her. They seemed gentle, almost kind, like soft hands around her shoulders. And the flame, the little, lonely flame, no longer looked small. It seemed vast, like it reached deep inside her. It glowed, not on her skin, but within her. Asha closed her eyes, and in the darkness behind her eyelids, she saw it. The same light, steady and calm, resting in her chest. For the first time, she understood. The flame was not outside. It was her own. When dawn came and the monks returned to the cave, they found her still sitting there. Her torch had long since gone out. Her eyes were open, but she did not speak. She simply smiled. A slow, quiet smile, like the kind the sea wears after a storm. From that day on, Asha became known as the keeper of the flame. She tended the bowl at the center of the cave for many years, never speaking much, never seeking praise, Those who visited her said that when she breathed near the fire, the light grew warmer, and when she sang, even the shadows seemed to listen. They said the cave had changed her, or perhaps revealed her. The darkness had not destroyed her, it had refined her the way night refines the stars. Centuries passed. The Brotherhood faded into legend. The mountains shifted. The valleys filled with grass and new life. The cave still stood, hidden among rocks and roots, its entrance half covered by moss and vines. Travelers who found it said they could still see a faint glow deep within, a flame that neither wind nor time could erase. Some believed it was only a trick of light, a reflection of the sun through cracks in the stone. But others knew better. They said the flame was the echo of Asha's spirit, her calm made eternal, her silence turned to light. Those who sat near it claimed they could hear faint breathing, like the whisper of their own hearts. And when they left, the world above seemed softer, the wind slower, the sky wider, the noise of life less sharp. The ancient ones were right. The cave was not a place of punishment, but of returning. In its darkness, all illusions fell away. There, one could see the truth that light and shadow were never enemies, only reflections of one another. Without shadow, light is blind. Without light, shadow is meaningless. The seekers taught that the shadowed flame was not about fire or fear, it was about patience. To sit long enough in stillness that the world inside you becomes clear again. To learn that nothing needs to be fought, only understood. Now, imagine yourself there. The cave breathes around you, quiet and vast. The air is cool on your skin. The only sound is the soft flicker of fire. You walk slowly down the stone corridor. The light grows dimmer as you go, until the world narrows to the glow of a single flame ahead. You sit before it. The ground is smooth, almost warm beneath your hands. The air feels alive. You watch the flame move. It bends and sways, slow as a heartbeat. Each flicker pulls your thoughts deeper into stillness. Each breath feels slower, softer. The shadows around you begin to dance. They are not threatening. They move like gentle waves, folding around you like a blanket. In the soft pulse of the light, you see reflections, not of faces or places, but feelings. Moments of joy, moments of fear, moments you've hidden, now glimmering faintly in the air. You do not push them away. You let them drift, like leaves upon dark water. They rise and fall with your breath, and with every breath they fade. Soon there is only peace. The flame burns steady, bright but calm. You feel it not before you, but within you. A quiet glow behind your ribs, a warmth spreading through your chest. You realize the cave is not around you, it is inside you. And the flame is not separate. It is your essence, your quiet, your truth. Outside, the night continues. Stars turn slowly above the mountains. A river murmurs somewhere far below. But within this stillness you are untouched. Time has no hold here. There is only breath, only peace. Let yourself rest now, like the flame that never dies. Let your thoughts fall quiet, like shadows returning to stone. You have faced the darkness, and it has become your calm. Now drift, slowly, gently, without fear. Drift deeper into the quiet that holds you. Let the flame inside you glow softly, endlessly. For in the heart of darkness, light has always lived, and in that light, you are home. The night is fading. Far beyond the mountains, the first breath of morning stirs. The stars dim like candles one by one as the sky opens its quiet eyes. The air is still cool, touched by dew, and the horizon carries the softest blush of gold. Somewhere, a temple bell hums low. Its tone rolls through the valley like a sigh. Steady, calm, timeless. It is said that this hour, when night bows to morning, is the hour of forgiveness, an hour when every shadow softens and every burden can be set down. Let us return to that sacred moment, to a world before words, before blame, a world where the soul learned, not by punishment, but by return, a world where even sorrow had its own gentle teacher. Long ago, in a land wrapped in mountains and silver rivers, there lived an old keeper named Saren. He was not a ruler, nor a saint, just a quiet man who tended the ancient bells of the Temple of Dawn. Each morning, before the sun rose, he would walk through the sleeping village carrying a lantern. Its flame was small but steady, glowing against the mist. People said Saren had once been a warrior. He had fought in the king's armies when he was young, when his heart burned with fire and pride. But one day, when the war ended, he laid down his sword and never lifted it again. He came to the mountains seeking silence, seeking peace. When asked why he had left the world of battle, Seren would only smile. He said, "I came to learn what cannot be won." The Temple of Dawn stood high upon a cliff, carved from white stone. Its steps were endless, and few had the strength to climb them all. But Seren did so every day, slowly, patiently, each step a prayer, each breath a reminder that peace is found in movement, not in victory. Inside the temple were 3 great bells. They were called the Bells of Balance. The first was named Remembrance, for all that had passed. The second, Mercy, for all that still struggled. And the third, Redemption, for all that could yet be healed. Seren was the keeper of these bells. He cleaned them, oiled their ropes, and struck them at dawn. Their sound did not call for worship or fear. It called for release. When the bells sang, the valley below would fall silent. Even the birds would wait, listening. There was an old belief among the people that when one lived with a heavy heart, the bells could hear it. Their sound would rise to meet your sorrow and return it as light, not to erase your past, but to soften it, to teach you that all things, every wound, every mistake, were simply steps toward balance. But there was one bell that Seren had never rung, the bell of redemption. It hung highest near the roof, covered with vines and dust. Its sound had not been heard for a generation. The elders had declared that it should remain silent, for its voice was too strong. They said it could shake the mountains, call the dead to remember, and bring tears to even the gods. Seren never questioned this. He only tended the other 2, faithful and calm, as years drifted quietly by. One evening, as the sun sank behind the cliffs, a traveler arrived. She was young, dressed in plain robes, her feet bare from a long journey. Her eyes carried the weariness of someone who had wandered too long through her own thoughts. She bowed to Seren and asked, "Keeper, do the bells still forgive?" Seren studied her face. There was something fragile in her gaze, like a bird afraid to land. "The bells do not forgive," he said softly. "They remind." The traveler lowered her head. She whispered, "I seek to forget." Seren's voice was gentle. "Then you seek the wrong mountain." He handed her a cup of water and said, "Rest here tonight. When dawn comes, you may listen. Perhaps the bells will speak?" That night, the sky was deep with stars. The temple halls were cool and quiet, lit only by lanterns flickering in their glass. The traveler lay awake, listening to the distant river below. Her thoughts turned like restless winds. Faces rose in her mind, people she had lost, words she had said, moments that still burned. The weight of them pressed upon her chest like stone. At last, she rose and walked toward the bells. The moonlight spilled across the temple floor like silver dust. She stopped before the great bell of redemption, its surface cold beneath her hand. Something inside her ached. "Please," she whispered to the metal, "if you are truly alive, forgive me." No answer came, only the sound of her breath in the vast emptiness. Before dawn, Seren found her there, kneeling. He did not scold her. He simply stood beside her in silence. When the horizon began to pale with morning light, he spoke. "You ask for forgiveness, but forgiveness is not something given. It is something grown." The traveler looked up, her eyes tired. "How does one grow what is already broken?" Seren turned toward the rising sun. "By facing it," he said. "By standing in the light long enough to see that even the cracks are part of the design." He stepped forward and touched the ropes of the smallest bell. It was the bell of remembrance. With one gentle pull, it rang, a low, warm tone that rolled through the air like a heartbeat. The sound reached into the valley, echoing against stone and water. It filled the traveler's chest, and with it came memory. Faces, laughter, grief, all woven together. She felt tears rise, but they did not sting. They felt cleansing, like rain after drought. Seren waited until the bell grew quiet. Then he said, "Now you remember." Next he touched the rope of the second bell, the bell of mercy. Its sound was softer, almost like a voice whispering across the wind. The air around them seemed to shimmer, and the traveler felt her breath slow. In that sound, she felt understanding. Every wound she carried was not punishment, but teaching. Every sorrow had been a turning. Every loss had shaped her toward gentleness. Seren looked at her again. "Now," he said, "you see?" When the last echo faded, silence returned. A deep, endless silence. Seren's gaze lifted to the third bell, the one that had slept for so long. Its shadow fell across the floor like a line of gold. The traveler followed his eyes and whispered, "Will you ring it?" Saren did not answer. For a long moment, he stood perfectly still. Then very slowly he began to climb the narrow steps that led to the highest platform. Dust swirled around his feet. He reached the rope, wrapped his hands around it, and looked down at the traveler below. "When this bell rings," he said, "you will not hear forgiveness. You will hear truth, the softest truth of all, that nothing in you was ever beyond peace." And with that, he pulled. The bell of redemption spoke. Its sound began as a whisper, barely a breath, then grew, unfolding like dawn itself. It filled the temple, the mountains, the sky. The air trembled, the earth seemed to breathe. But there was no fear in its song, only tenderness. It was as if the world itself was exhaling after centuries of holding breath. The traveler closed her eyes. She felt the sound pass through her, through every part of her that had ever ached. It did not erase her sorrow, it turned it to light. Memories that once felt sharp now glowed with warmth. Every mistake, every pain, became a thread in a greater pattern. She saw how all of it had led her here, to this still moment, to this dawn. When the sound finally faded, tears lay on her cheeks, but her face was calm. She whispered, "I understand now. It was never punishment. It was the path." Saren nodded. The light of morning touched his face, and for a moment he seemed made of it. "The dawn always returns," he said. "Not because the night was wrong, but because it is complete." The sun rose, slow and golden, spilling warmth across the stones. Birds began to sing. The world breathed again. The traveler stayed a while, tending to the temple, learning the rhythm of peace. And when it was time for her to leave, she carried no burden, no guilt, only the sound of the bells echoing gently within her heart. It is said that wherever she went, people felt lighter. Children slept better, old arguments faded, and those in sorrow found themselves smiling without knowing why. For she carried with her the echo of the dawn, the soft hum of redemption, eternal and kind. Now, as you listen, imagine the temple standing once more upon its cliff. The bells hang still, bathed in gold light. The air smells of sun-warmed stone and morning dew. Somewhere far below, a river sings to itself, calm and unhurried. The bell of redemption is silent now, but its song still moves through the world, in wind, in breath, in the quiet spaces between thoughts. You can almost hear it if you listen softly enough. It says only this: nothing is lost, nothing is wasted. All things return to light. Let that truth rest upon you like sunlight through clouds. Let it warm the edges of your heart, where old fears used to live. Let it remind you that every darkness was a step toward morning. The sky grows brighter now. The air is calm. The path ahead is clear and open, touched by gold. Let yourself drift in that light. Let the bells fade into silence. Let your breath slow, your body soften, your spirit find its rhythm again. For the dawn of gentle redemption has come. It asks for nothing. It only shines. Now rest as the stars return to their quiet watch. Rest as the mountains breathe in peace. Rest, for the night has taught you well, and the morning loves you still.